Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Say, Honourable Prime Minister, members of Parliament, I rise to contribute and support the motion before the House, that is to ratify the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of Child on the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this this subject is not new to our communities, and as members of Parliament, I think it's very important that we rise strongly to condemn these acts that violates the rights of our children, whether it's child trafficking, child prostitution or child pornography. I wish to draw the reference volume 2171A, the preamble, and I wish to focus on the two following parts, and I quote, "Believing that the elimination of the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography will be facilitated by adopting a holistic approach, addressing the contributing factors, including underdevelopment, poverty, economic disparities, inequitable social economic structure, dysfunctional families, lack of education, urban-rural migration, gender discrimination, irresponsible adult sexual behavior, harmful traditional practices, armed conflict and trafficking of children," unquote, and believing that efforts to raise public awareness are needed to reduce consumer demand for the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography, and also believing in the importance of strengthening global partnerships among all actors and improving law enforcement at the national level. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education and I personally stand here to condone all such acts against our children, and we must work together to safeguard Fijian children. The members before me have spoken about their support for the motion, and I think we need to see more of that in this August House. At a ministerial level, I come across many examples of these issues from the communities that filter down to our schools. I will draw the House to a specific incident that happened last year when a case such as this was reported to us. And when we investigated, the child did not hesitate to say he learned it when he saw his parents. And actually, this was a case of whether, I'm not going to say a boy or a girl, a case of sexual harassment between students. So that's why I wish to draw the attention to this irresponsible adult sexual behavior and the fact that as parents, we need to be there to protect our children. Within the ministry, many times we see that the blame is shifted to our school facilities, or the teacher did not do that. But we encourage all children to have the courage to come and report these incidences to their teachers in schools if they do not feel comfortable with any other family members. We've also seen a rising incidence of such cases being reported, and as such we have strengthened our school policies. Currently we have a child protection policy where teachers are trained to be child protection officers, and because of the criminal nature of such events, there's a 24-hour mandatory reporting. As soon as a case is reported to the head of school or the child protection officer, we report that to the police. We also work with the social welfare department to ensure that we have a coordinated approach. We have a policy on behavior management in school, a counseling policy. Even the students come under our student code of conduct policy. We have police check policies for volunteers and visitors in our schools. Of course, there's procedures for school visitors. And right now we are looking at a policy that we have labeled as parental engagement policy. So a lot of talk about awareness. And we want to work with the parents to advise them of the dangers that continue to lurk out within the communities and outside of the school hours. Hopefully, we will be able to implement that policy by engaging with various stakeholders during our consultation process. Mr. Speaker, but the question is, why do these things continue to happen? And this is not a new phenomenon. My stand here would be, as parents, as adults, as grandparents, as guardians, we really need to be vigilant about this technology that seems to have taken over our lives. And this is what everybody carries. Access to technology, access to internet sources, access to applications and sites. Like Honorable Tambuya spoke about how we tend to audit our children's phone. But I can give you an example that children these days are smarter than us. They have these phones locked up. I have the same situation at home with teenage daughters. So how do we get to befriend our children? How do we get to know what's going on in their lives? How do we get to know who they talk to, who they associate with? How do we advise them? How do we protect and guide them? So I think more awareness on that is needed, and as schools, we are going to play our part by engaging more with parents from this year as soon as we get that parental engagement policy in place. But other than that, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Balanuda said poverty. Nobody has a right to sell their child to put food on the table. I totally disagree with that. I will understand that poverty could be a contributing factor, but that does not justify parents or adults selling their children, trafficking the children to put food on the table. I'll give you another example. Everybody is aware of the street boys that sell pastries and other stuff in the afternoon. I have a lot of stories with them. Every time I pass by, I speak to them. And I get to hear horrific stories about what's happening at the house. But unfortunately, every effort that I made, I picked up 5 boys from the street, every effort I've made to put them back in school has been futile, because when they go back home, the story changes. But we are not going to give up. We've decided that we'll go to the villages and meet these parents. When I gave them the school stationery and the bags, I said, okay, I'll give you shoes and uniform as well. I found which school they were going to. Unfortunately, I was told they sold the bags. But again, that effort must continue, what I'm trying to say. We must never give up on our young ones. And we will continue to do that. And it has to be a coordinated effort. So as members of this House, even if we can make one difference by reporting, by counseling, by talking to these children, I'm sure it will go a long way. So, like I said, there's a lot of things, but my focus here is for parents. Please monitor where your children are. Monitor how much time they spend on their phones, on going through various sites and stuff. These children are would be very much swayed by things that they see. Some students tell us when we ask them, why did they do that? Oh, we saw it. You know, we saw it. Our friends told us it's right to do. All these sexual behaviors, they learn by watching. They learn by reading. They learn from adults. So how do we go about combating them? We have laws, we have legislations, and I think the good way forward is that we all have supported that. But individually, through our faith-based organizations, through our own communities, our own networks, we must ensure that as parents we are aware, and children these days talk about their rights. We must teach our children rights comes with responsibilities. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to take my seat and strongly support the motion before the House.
I thank the Honourable Minister.